So I invite everyone now to center themselves from worship. We're going to begin with Spirit of Life, offered today by UUCR member Philip Dutton. And what happens now is during recorded pieces, the screen will be shared and we pray. Emily, our first screen share. Sue Browning. I am just so honored to serve both the congregation in Easton and the congregation in Chestertown. And it has been a year, and it is wonderful to gather actually at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning and to see how that feels. It's just an absolutely gorgeous morning. It is the time, it is the season of lights. It is the places where we look for glimmers of hope. It is the places where we try to find each other on these short days. We are glad you are here. If you are new to the congregations or new to Unitarian Universalism, please seek us out. Please make sure to ask questions. I think today what you'll see is we are a congregation who draws our inspiration from many sources, from many other religions that through the umbrella that we hold are ours also. We try to find meaning and our spiritual path in many ways, and especially during this holiday season, we lift up some very traditional ways of celebrating. So take that breath and come, let us worship. I'd light our chalice today with words from Melanie Davis. If there ever were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of life, love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. And our hymn this morning is Light One Candle in the Spirit of Hanukkah. We are going to have a Thoughts for All Ages around Hanukkah, and so grateful for Dave Moore for offering this hymn.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice that justice and freedom demand. But light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. And light one candle to bring us together, with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment to those who have died? When we cry out, they've not died in vain. Have we come this far, always believing that justice would somehow prevail? And this is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
Gratitude, Dave. I heard the recording the other night when I was sitting by our tree, and it literally did bring me to tears as I was looking at some of the music of this season and listening to it. So our thoughts for all ages today is going to be the lighting of the Hanukkah candles, but I had the great opportunity to hear one of my colleagues from Massachusetts, do the lighting and tell a little story and sing the blessings in Hebrew. So we are going to light the candles with Joanna. I will then light them in the sanctuary, and that will be the beginning of our own festival of lights. So we'll share now this YouTube piece.
Good morning. Last night, families around the world lit Hanukkah candles, lighting 3 candles for the 3rd night of the festival. So I bring this morning the practice of lighting candles to this Unitarian Universalist congregation, where many of us, like myself, have a Jewish background or want to honor the Jewish holidays. The rabbis of the Talmud, well, they argued a lot, and one of the things they argued over was how one should light the Hanukkah lights. One rabbi and his school of thought that each night you should add an extra light, that on the first night you light 1 candle or lamp, and the second night you light 2, and so on. Another school of thought said, no, you should start with 8 and get fewer and fewer as it goes on. So from 8 candles and lamps or lights to 7 and 6. Well, as you may have guessed, the school of thought about adding light won over time, that's what we do. And the rationale is that we should be increasing light. We should be increasing joy in the world. We should be bringing more light to darkness. I'm taking that to heart this year, that in a year where things have been hard, let's add light. Let's add joy. Let's add wonder. So whatever that looks like for you, may this be a season of increasing light and joy, warmth and connection during long nights. I'll sing the Hanukkah blessings in Hebrew, the first 2 blessings over the candle, and the third for the first time in a year where one does something. And since this is the first Sunday this year where we're lighting Hanukkah candles together, we'll sing that one as well. And following that, we'll say the English translation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim hahem, ba'azman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings moments of holiness to our lives through the ritual of lighting the Hanukkah lights. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings our attention to miracles from ages past to this very moment. Blessed are you, source of all, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this very moment. And let us say, Amen. Happy Hanukkah.
There are blessings in this time of virtual services, and one of them was getting to have Joanna do that blessing. And our candles are lit here. We now own a menorah, and Davis got us one last year. I invite us now into a time of reflection, a time of meditation. These words are from Gwen Matthews. They're titled, "You Are the Holiday Miracle." As December opens before us, we welcome in the gift of reflection. We turn toward our holiday celebrations and search for common threads of meaning. We begin with Yule, the winter solstice, and we are invited to explore duality, cycles and seasons, and to witness the Holly King being overcome by the Oak King. Yule reminds us that we all partake in the miracle of renewal. Hanukkah, the festival of lights, commemorates a time of miracles when the faith of the Jewish people sustained them to reclaim their holy temple and to keep the light of the menorah burning for 8 days. Christmas, the celebration of Jesus's humble birth in a manger, offers us to revisit the miracle of birth and the desire to find saviors to heal the scars of humanity. Here in our congregations, you are just as much a holiday miracle as the turning of the earth, the persistence and dedication to a faith, and the creation of each new life. We see the love that we give to one another, the space we hold for one another's joys and sorrows, and the generosity of spirit that keeps these communities together. You are the holiday miracle. This community is a group of miracle makers. So I invite us to take a moment, reflect on those words. What is the role you are called to during this season? Where might you hold space for one another, for someone else? Where might you need to receive this season? The needs to receive are also a blessing. Where might you need to be comforted, to be reassured? Take a moment, reflect on this gathered community, gathered in this unique way in 2020. How will we give and receive from one another this season. Amen and blessed be. Our next music will both transition to the sermon, but I hope we consider it a part of our blessing. This is by Carrie Miller and Ellen Grundon are playing as we enter this season, the season of coming. Gratitude to Ellen and Carrie. So one day this week, I was driving in Easton and I was in this really pleasant, non-rushed mode. I was enjoying my slow erranding, maybe a little bit avoiding going into the office, and I ended up on this street behind Walgreens, the Walgreens over on Route 50. And my plan was to make a right turn onto Dover Road. But the traffic was just stopped on this little street, and for me and those three cars, we were waiting on the side of the street, and life was on hold. Oh well, I thought. I was in that relaxed mode. Yet the person behind me kept honking and honking. So I look up in my rear view mirror and I see a young man in a relatively large pickup, and clearly he did not want to wait. He'd honk and then he was inching, a little bit closer to my car, and you get to that point, you go, really? Like, what do you think is gonna change? What do you think is gonna change? But I tried my best to give him a break and to hold my judgment, because I didn't know the why of his urgency. Maybe he needed to get back to work on time, or maybe he was going to visit a grandparent. I didn't know. Well, maybe that was the case, or maybe he just felt that his time was being wasted. And he was declaring that his time was important, and I could hear in the honking the growing frustration. Yet, I'm sure he could also look around and see what I could see. There were no options. There was no real way to bypass this traffic. Calm down. calm down, I was silently declaring. It will be just minutes. It's not going to be hours. It's not going to be months or years. We'll be moving. But maybe in his youth, maybe he thought that the cries of his horn would get things moving, and maybe they would. But I couldn't see in my wisdom how this was going to change anything. And maybe he was a little better off for just having let out that frustration, for crying out in the way he needed to cry out that day. I've thought about it, and I think this scene about summarizes the year of 2020. We are stuck. There have been no workarounds, no turning back. Some days we've had that needed patience, but other days we just want to cry out, make it be over. This is the holiday backdrop for this year. We're in a holding pattern. When my colleague, Reverend Joanna Lumpkin, shared the story of Hanukkah, we heard that the rabbis debated the ritual. It's good to know other churches and every different faith traditions debate things. And they chose the sequence which add light. And it's always helpful to remember that when the time we're trying to remember, there was huge uncertainty. In fact, all bets were against the oil lasting. The chances the oil would last were virtually none. And we're trying to commemorate this time of waiting in uncertainty and not knowing. And yet, they didn't look at how the oil was decreasing, how the lights were going out, and the angst. They looked for that glimmer, the additional light. What was interesting too is, as I saw my colleague setting, she had an Advent wreath there right next to her chalice. It was comfortably on her table, and part of drawing from many sources as Unitarian Universalists is to look to many traditions. So I also want to talk today about Advent. Advent is actually the whole 4 Sundays before Christmas. So this year it started the last Sunday in November. And I can recall in my childhood, I grew up in an Episcopal church, there would be 3 purple candles and 1 pink candle. And that was the candles we lit on the Advent wreath. And I could sense there was a countdown. But for me, there was nothing religious about that countdown. I was waiting through Christmas season for Christmas morning, period. I liked the giving of gifts. I liked the receiving of gifts. But there wasn't anything calm in my body as we got closer and closer to Christmas morning. I'm thinking here, my dad, not written in the script here, but my father was adding to this excitement. My father was a very large child who really enjoyed Christmas, probably even more than his kids. So the month had a feeling more of urgency, not religious waiting. I think in December, the slides that we put together for O Come Emmanuel, they show us those pictures of stillness, the snow-covered fields, the candles. But peaceful waiting, calmly for the turning, it's not the waiting I know, and I don't think it's the waiting that our ancestors knew. I think we mark time with these holidays, with this candle lighting, with the celebrations and preparation, is because we want to be reassured that the waiting will be over soon. Waiting generally is hard. So we mark time and we pray, and we prepare rather. So Advent is a religious holiday. It is not the preparation of the meals and the gathering and getting ready, but it is the preparation of our hearts. In the cycle of Advent, if you think about it, there's a waiting. It's celebrated every year, and it's a waiting for God, the coming of the divine in Jesus. So it is a spiritual preparation time. How does one prepare for a visit from God? If God, if we think of it as all that is good, and a source of imagining what could be and what should be, If God is the source of all love, how does one ready for the coming? What do you do to prepare? Do you sit calmly, or is there work to do? One of the readings that's used around Advent is teaching about preparation. What's interesting is it was written probably 700, 800 years before the birth of Jesus. It's the reading from Isaiah, Isaiah 40, verses 3 to 5. A voice cries out in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill shall be made low. The uneven ground shall be made level, and the rough places plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all the people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." I think it's helpful when we use these readings to have a little context. And there had been a major interruption in the lives of the Jewish people. They were in exile. They had been kicked out of Jerusalem. They were in Babylon. And all of the routines of their lives had been disrupted. It was a time of waiting, but waiting in a place of lament, a place of sadness. Where was the hope that they could lean into? Maybe these are not unlike the questions we bring into the 2020 season. So Isaiah is asking them, what's a productive way to finish out this waiting? Isaiah is saying focus. Focus, do your best to clear the way, to clear a path for all. I read these, whether this was the intent, is thinking about some of our equity goals. Preparation wasn't going to be easy. Flattening mountains, raising valleys. And yet during this time of anxiety, this was going to add purpose to the time. I think Advent also is a way that we break down waiting. The candles actually signify, there's different interpretations, but as a general matter, they signify hope for the first week, peace the second, love the third week, and that's when the pink candle is generally lit, and finally joy. And Jesus was going to come, and he was both human and divine, and it was going to take 9 months for him to be born, more or less. There was active waiting, to be sure, but when we're dealing with the waiting with something finite, we know there will be an end. And Jesus is born, and there is the celebration and the joy. But Advent is doing more than just thinking about the birth of Jesus. At the time, it was about welcoming God into your heart, but there was also a belief that there would be a second coming of Jesus. And Advent is part of the waiting for the next coming. We do know in the stories of the early Christians, this kind of waiting is harder. You don't know if it's going to end or when. In one interpretation I read, it said, since no one knows the day or hour when Christ will return, not even the angels, we are not to spend our time trying to figure out when or how it will happen. This is not our concern. Rather, our charge is to keep alert, to keep awake. It's a sense that we have a role of witness, a role of paying attention, but to keep on living and doing what we know is right and living out the values of our culture at the same time, not to go into a waiting pattern that stops life. Would Christ come again? Advent just asks us to hold the uncertainty, to not wait passively, but to continually prepare. I can't help but note that it has been 9 months, virtually to the day, that the pandemic started. The first church service we completely canceled was March 15th. My children will declare the pandemic happened and we could officially name it start on March 14th because that's when the NBA canceled its season. However you want to look at it, today is 9 months in and we see glimmers of hope or light, but we wonder, what is it we can trust? We feel moments of joy. And 2, we see profound suffering. It is the time we find ourselves in, friends. But we are not the first to tire of waiting. I skip forward in the scriptures in Isaiah down to verse 28. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall not walk and not faint. When Isaiah was writing, he had no sense of an Advent wreath or any other Christian symbols. He would have had no sense of the story of the Maccabees. That was going to come 500 years later. Nor would Isaiah have known of pickup trucks and honking on a side street. But we can hear that Isaiah did know, without any of these particulars of stressful times. He knew the challenge of exile, the waiting. We now know the challenge of COVID and the waiting. Isaiah invited those in exile to prepare for return, to be patient, and to trust that there would be a turning, and to use the time of waiting to ready for the changes that would come. So what does it look like in 2020 to prepare? And even more specifically, what might it look like for Unitarian Universalists to spiritually prepare during a time of uncertainty? We draw from many sources to ground our faith. We're interested about learning about these religious traditions in our own curious sort of way, but I ask us to do more with that. When we offer the experience of lighting Hanukkah candles or the images of Advent, when we teach these to our children, my hope is that we are considering how they have meaning in our lives, the deep parts of our life, the places where we long for wholeness and connection. Where are we called to smooth out what we can and to keep focus on hope, peace, love, and joy? They're all part of our time in the wilderness. After 9 months of waiting, I think we all have times when we just want to relentlessly honk. We are weary. We've been through the election. We've been through the virus. We've been through restrictions that change and come back, classrooms that open, classrooms that come back. I think we're irritable at times, or drained, or hyperactive, trying to make the world better, or trying to get things to return to just the way they were. We want to go back to before. We wait in frustration. And I also think, like the folks in exile, there's a sadness we need to name. But if we watch our children, amidst it all, there is excitement about presents and giving and receiving them. There is joy in sharing with the greater community and participating in our various works that both congregations are doing. The call that Isaiah gave us from the wilderness was to prepare our hearts, especially in times of uncertainty. stay focused, to know what gives us patience and balance, and to be okay if we cry out, if we honk once in a while. So my hope is together that we light the candles of this season, the traditions that have been carried out through the ages, to see a glimpse of light in the world, a peek at vaccines that work and can be produced and administered, an awareness of improvements in treatment and testing, and that we see some pride in all the ways that we are adapting and finding ways to enjoy little bits here and there. So may we rest in the comfort of the words that have come to us through the ages. Words with a fresh light, words we hear in a fresh light in 2020, candles we light in a fresh way. May it be so, and blessed be. I wasn't sure, so now I've got my pages all messed up here. There we go. I wasn't sure if we could figure out an Advent wreath, but we did. So we're going to go ahead and light an Advent wreath now. I'm going to pull it up here. Everybody see that okay? What's interesting is this is the third week of Advent, so we're going to light 2 purple candles for hope and peace, and it is the pink candle, comes on the third week, and that is the candle of love, and next week we will light the 4th candle when I'm up in Chestertown. So we light the Advent wreath candles from our chalice. Think. Let the light go out. Maybe one of our screenshot folks can take a screenshot of our chalice, our Advent candles, and our menorah. So our closing hymn today is Let Christmas Come. And that will be followed, we'll have board announcements after that, and then we'll extinguish the chalice. Both Christina and Dave from both congregations will do a whirlwind of what's going on in the congregations, and we'll head to our postlude. So Emily, let Christmas come.
Christmas come, its story told, when days are short and winds are cold. Let Christmas come, its lovely song, when evening soon and night is long. Let Christmas come, its great star glow,
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen and Emily, for doing the sharing. So now is the time for board announcements. Christina, this is Christina Droston, Emily will spotlight Christina, if we can get all the right mutes off and on, and she is going to give us the couple-minute report of all things that are moving around UUFE.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christina Droston, and I'm happy to be assisted today by Eve, who's going to help me with the announcements. So the first one here is from Eve.
Jim Richardson and the Social Justice
Committee.
Committee was to announce the special collection for December will be rebuilding Together Caroline County. This non-profit organization provides free home repair services to low-income homeowners living in Caroline County, including the elderly, disabled,
Individuals.
and families with children.
Okay, so that's our December collection for our Social Justice Committee. Also, UUFE is sponsoring a common read this winter. It will be arranged via Zoom discussions in February. The book was chosen by a small committee, and it is titled Becoming Nicole by Amy Ellis Nutt. This is a true story of a child, an identical twin, who was assigned male gender at birth, but feels that she is a girl from a very early age. The parents, brother, school, and community journey through the challenges by her determination to be true to herself. Look for announcements in UU Life or contact Jane Terreby with questions. Also, Patty Hampshire has organized a Christmas donation collection for 18 children who are living in Talbot County, whose parents have limited resources to provide Christmas gifts. She's seeking volunteers to purchase an outfit of clothing and either a toy, book, or game to go with the clothing. If interested, please contact Patty or CUU Life for further details. And last but not least, as your board president, I'd like to request that we each consider making a year-end donation for UUFE. Even a small donation can make a difference, especially if we pull together right now. As we have discussed in other settings, our congregation has been facing some financial challenges these past couple of years, this current year even more so. Nonetheless, we continue to cover expenses associated with our property for when we can return in person, and we pay our staff for the work they're continuing throughout the pandemic to organize and maintain our congregation. Hopefully you've received your snail mail copy of the year-end letter that I sent out. However, with the true snail's pace of mail these days, I'm going to also email a copy of the letter this week. Thank you for considering helping UUFE persevere during this time, both with your presence, your energy today, and with a financial contribution.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for all you and the board are doing. It's amazing. Okay, now we're going to go to Dave Beeler. Good shout out for Dave. Oh, he's got Christmas wallpaper. How cool is that?
No, that used to be my dining room 100 years ago. Hi, I'm David Beeler from Chester River. It seems like there's a lot going on. There's even more going on now than when we actually had normal gatherings. And I encourage everybody to click on reflections that Jane Hardy and Jan submit. So there's a lot of announcements going on. Big thing that we've done the last couple of weeks is distributed a picture directory, and I want to thank Diane and Jan and the distribution team that got all that out. I'm really pretty happy with that. Speaking of Jan, I don't know, most of you know that she's my idol. She's doing one of her bucket lists. She has fabricated and got together and built a van, and in January is going to do a cross-country tour, she and her cat, and I'm really envious of that. But we've been so lucky to have Jan the last couple of years, and we've also are very fortunate that we have a Darlene Wiggers has come on board, and Jan is currently training her. So kind of back to the reflections, if you will look at reflections, there's a big party going on this Friday, the 18th. And Jim Lavin and John Ramsey are MCs, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. So please look at reflections and join us that. And I hope that is as successful, Sue, as this Zoom meeting has been. I think it's really impressive how this came off. The thing on this Friday is substitutes for the activity that Carl always had of the winter solstice. So we're gonna have some candle lighting and try to do virtually the all the activities that we used to have at Carol and Brenda's house on the bay. We'll also, don't forget, our Eve of Eve services, which will, I think it's on the 23rd of December. It's another event that we're going to have in spite of all this. Don't forget, please, as was just mentioned, contributions on our, like the donor button to our social services, and think of others in this time. I think that's about all I have right now.
Impressive, impressive. You both got through there. And the only other one to mention is one of the funny things when I was hired is Chestertown said to me, we do something odd. We have an Eve of Eve service. We don't do Christmas Eve. We do it on the 23rd. And I said, that'll work out well. So there is a service that will be in Chester River. Will be a Zoom service at 7 p.m. on the 23rd. And then Easton is staying with their tradition of a service at 4:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Ellen is working with the choir. She's working with various folks to pull that together. Emily's got some ideas, so I was very grateful for all the inputs we're getting on that. I'm going to extinguish our chalice now, and this will just morph into coffee hour. So if you have to leave, we understand. And if you'd like to stay and share more, think about the candles, that's great. So I will extinguish the chalice, and then there is a lovely postlude. You'll see a picture of a Christmas tree, and when the Christmas tree comes down, we will then be in coffee hour. Words that we extinguish our chalice from Cynthia Landum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection. Our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. Go in peace, go in love, go knowing love surrounds you wherever you may go.